welcome to Doctor Who Radio Show. I am That's The Way It Goes, 09, better known as Dave, and this is...
Brian.
Thank you for joining me, Brian. And
Quite welcome.
It's very great for you to take your time out of your schedule watching the latest Game of Thrones and other wonderful TV episodes. But speaking of TV episodes, or rather the end of the soon-to-be shown, well, in a couple of months' time I suppose, after it starts broadcasting, the end of Season 8, Peter Capaldi's first season as the 12th, or if you want to be really pedantic, first Doctor of Life Cycle 2. So what do you think, Brian, about the idea of a two-part story or two separate stories that are connected to end Peter Capaldi's first series?
That'd be cool. It's nothing like what they've done before. The previous Doctors already kind of had the part 1, part 2 type of thing. David Tennant at one point had three-parter series finale, but
it
wouldn't shock me that they would do two-parter.
Well, Tennant had a trilogy, if you like, which started with Utopia, and then Last of the Time Lords part 1 and 2. But it was really a trilogy because it had a three-core type feeling to it.
It was a three-parter basically.
Sort of Time Lord three-parter. Part 1 reintroduced the Master. Part 2 saw the Master carrying out his plan to take over the Earth with basically the future selves of the human race, and then the final part was the final meeting of the Doctor and his Master.
Part 2 was kind of, to me, it felt like trying to come up with a plan, trying to defeat the Master, and part 3 was him defeating the Master. So.
Yeah, in essence. Although the strange thing is, they'd skipped a year when he'd basically taken over completely. You had Martha going across the world in unseen adventures, very much like the Doctor's time in Christmas, or the sort of gaps between Tennant's last few stories, Waters and Mars, Planet of the Dead, and then the two-part final of his.
There was, to me, the way I see it, with Tennant's last adventures, there was a story between Planet of the Dead and Waters of Mars.
Worked very well, that did.
Which was the Sarah Jane episode where Tennant appeared.
Oh yeah, of course. Wedding of Sarah Jane.
Yes.
So there's been quite a few of these two-parters. Every season they basically have one, but they've done it in different ways. You could argue that, Night of the Doctor, Day of the Doctor, Time of the Doctor, all basically a free.
With Tennant's timeline and with the where he came back in the 50th, that's when he played the Doctor. At that point, it was between Waters of Mars and End of Time, part 1.
Yeah, it's almost.
Actually, he actually mentioned in End of Time at the beginning that he got married.
Yeah, that was hinted at, but you never saw it properly referred to.
Yeah, so they got that in 50th. So.
But you actually see it. That's rather nice. So You could sort of imagine that the bit where he meets the Ood at the start of the end of time is straight after he's sort of been sent back to his own, time stream, as it were. Like they do in the Five Doctors, where all the Doctors are returned to their allotted points in, the Doctor's personal time stream.
Yeah, and they they forget the whole thing because.
Well, that's a bit of a sore point, because the second Doctor seemed to remember, and fans basically have liked to sort of write stories around when they were actually taking out time in the Five Doctors or the Three Doctors.
But they forget because they can't retain the memories. It's too much. At least that's what I think. How Matt Smith's Doctor explained it.
Yeah, so it's like a sort of catch. You discover something about your future self, but maybe it's like a fail-safe of the universe or time or something to prevent you knowing too much about your future. Because there would be major implications if, say the 10th Doctor remembered everything that happened. He'd be... events would play out totally different from his point in time onwards. Plus he'd have perfect knowledge of the man he's about to become, or would come at some point. And the same with John Hurt's Doctor, the War Doctor. If he'd remembered that he hadn't actually destroyed Gallifrey, then that would change the last 7 years. Do you think there should be more multi-part stories?
I don't know. I mean, it would be really awesome and amazing if they did, but
do you think as a news series person that there should be more stories which are 2 parts rather than just singular parts? Would it give more enjoyment, do you think, to your viewing, type thing?
Wait, what would?
More sort of 2 parts, say more 2-part stories, or perhaps 2 3-part stories. Not just simply, at the end of a series, or, halfway during the season type thing, but actually stories which specifically are, 3 or 2-parters.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit more.
What are your reasons for it?
Not all the time, but maybe like just a little bit more than they normally do.
Oh, cool. Because that used to be, I would say, up to really season 21. That was on a regular basis. And then they changed the format for 1985 because of the success of Resurrection of the Daleks. And then really from then on, you never had more than 4 episode stories. And then by season 26, it was really just a sort of potpourri of them, 2, 3 or 4. And then of course, when the series came back, that was it really. You just had 2 45 to 50-minute episodes. Because in this day and age, having a...
Well, the classic series were... like you said, they both... When it first started out, it was like 5 to 6 episodes, and then when it came closer to the end of the classic era, it was down to like 3 episodes, and they're like half an hour a piece.
It would seem now that Doctor Who, as well as other British programmes, have adopted an American format. I mean, virtually every series seems to have that. You either have 13, 20 episodes, or sort of online, sort of Netflix commission ones, or you have a sort of mini-series type thing. Because TV doesn't seem to have the money it used to have. Everything seems a little bit more expensive. 6 episodes or 8 episodes, like in the second or third Doctor, or even the fourth Doctor was the last Doctor to have 6 episodes in a story. So really, that old format of the classic series is dead and buried, really, for intents and purposes. And you have the fact that you have the internet, so the very concept that people have to watch it, week after week, is gone completely. You could record an entire series of, say, Hannibal or Game of Thrones, watch it all in one day if you wanted to, or watch it, one a month, which is just an example.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wonders and joy of modern age.
But what do you think, Brian, might be the reason for the 2-part finale? Is it the Master returning? Is it something to do with Clara's exit, like some people have suggested?
I hope the Master returns. He hasn't been in since Tenet, so I would really love the Master to return.
Oh, yeah, he hasn't been in it for years. He wasn't in the 50th anniversary. That was a bit surprising.
Last time we saw him was the End Time special.
Basically clinging on to life, really. And that scene where he's having to literally kill people, and as soon as he has, he's back to normal, but his body's giving off, like the Doctor says. The Doctor points out he's expending energy so quickly.
He wasn't just killing people, he was eating them.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point. He was eating. That would sort of recharge his batteries, if you like. But his body was so unstable, which is just like the classic series used to have. He had to go through extraordinary measures to keep his body alive.
Yeah. That's how the Master always was. He was, if his plan didn't go right, or even from the point when his first cycle of regeneration was to an end, he went to extreme measures to get a new body.
I see.
Which was Nessa's father.
Yeah. I suppose Time with the Doctor was the only time we saw him essentially doing what the Master had always done. Got some way to sort of cheat his life cycle.
Yes, but it wasn't. He didn't really. It wasn't really the Doctor. It was the regeneration energy through the crack going into the Doctor. So the Doctor didn't choose it.
Sent by the Time Lords, basically. It was like a nice sort of nod to the 3 Doctors, where after he's helped the Time Lords, save themselves, along with the first and second Doctors, as a reward, they return his knowledge of space-time. That chameleon circuit materialises in the TARDIS. That's the same thing. They've sent him a new life cycle as a reward for, saving everyone. Which is because of what he did in Day of the Doctor.
Yeah.
But you're right, though, that was the Time Lords. The Doctor wouldn't purposely sacrifice a planet like Niss's planet or the entire galaxy. He would actually accept his fate, but the Master wouldn't, because the Master's attitude is I want to live. Sorry, go on.
I still think it's the Master that gave the regeneration energy through the crack.
Why do you think that then? Because you've mentioned this point before.
Because I don't know. I mean,
He could be, because he disappeared with Time Lords at the end of time.
and it looked like he was. It looked like he killed Rassilon. I mean, they didn't officially say, or it didn't look like he was that Rassilon died, but it looked like he was just about to kill Rassilon. So
You could theorise that if he was still with the Time Lords somewhere, he might have sent. Yeah, he might have helped the Time Lords send a new life cycle. Because if the Doctor dies, that's it. He's got no enemies, worthy of himself. Just like he says when the Master was first introduced. All his greatest opponents.
yeah, the Master has always been the Doctor's equal in a sense, and
A mirror image, basically.
if it turned, and it would make a little sense. I'm not saying it's confirmed, like it is the Master, but it kind of would make sense that the Master would give the Doctor new life cycle. Because it's always been like, it's always been the two of them, and that they're equals and everything, so.
Like they can't exist without each other, evil, good. Like Moriarty or Sherlock Holmes.
I mean, they were friends at first, like when they were kids and when they were growing up, and at the academy, so.
Oh, yeah. All that was sort of reconfirmed in the new series, and it was originally mentioned in the classic series, and that's the great thing. A brilliant idea, Brian, really, Master and Doctor. So it doesn't matter how many years Doctor Who goes on, a good writer can just sort of drop hints here and then, a new generation will understand it.
There was a storyline, though, which they dropped because Roger Delgado died and everything.
Oh, yeah, yes. It was what would have been the story taking Planet of the Spiders, the final game or something like that.
It was, the Master would have turned out to be the Doctor's brother.
Yeah, something like that, basically. Sacrificing himself. Which isn't entirely... Yeah, but that's not so different from what he did in End of Time. Although, if he's saving the Doctor, for any reason or in any instance, you could argue that he's not doing it necessarily for the Doctor's sake. Perhaps if he loses the Doctor, he has no choice but to become essentially the Doctor himself, because he has no one to fight against. He has no purpose,
Yeah.
What do you think of the idea that Clara might possibly be the reason for this two-part story, a way to write her out? And if you had a choice, Brian, how would you write the Impossible Girl out?
Well, I don't know, because as long as it's not tragic like Amy and Willie, I'm fine.
Would you kill her off, or have give her a happy ending of sorts, or?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I would do if I was the one to write out, but I just don't really want a sad ending for Clara.
Ah, a happy ending.
It probably will. It probably will be sad though, because the Doctor's life.
Yeah.
With the fans and everything, you know how it ends up with the Doctor. It's always something tragic.
Yeah. No, they certainly stuck to the Ponds having a tragic ending of sorts. Not a dying ending, but something worse than death, really.
And also, Donna was a tragic thing. She was basically dying until the Doctor wiped her memory.
So tragic endings, but in a way that you wouldn't expect.
And with Rose, she was sent with a parallel universe, no choice, and she had no say.
So, does that suggest that in the Doctor Who universe, if you want a happy ending, there comes a catch with it?
Yeah. I mean, the only companion that didn't really have a sad ending and everything was Martha.
Well,
because she left by choice.
I beg your pardon?
Martha left by choice. Well, it wasn't really that was the only companion that wasn't really a tragic, sad ending.
So if you decide not to cling on to your adventures with the Doctor, but realise, maybe that's it. Perhaps if you realise you won't be with him forever and decide to, move on, as it were, which the Doctor didn't do. He just ran away from his problems. Then you do get a happy ending of sorts. That's a bit odd.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with the classic series, there were all sorts of, companions getting married, or, going off to a job or something, or going to live somewhere, or like Romana going off to work in another universe, I think it was, Warrior's Gate. But rarely did people actually die. But with this series,
the only companion back then, like in the classic series, that died was Adric.
Adric's Sarah Kingdom, and Perry's sort of.
And Perry also died.
Well, she was supposed to have died, but it was later revealed that she just married King Yrcanos. The only exception really is Ace, because you never really saw what happened to her. The implication in unmade stories, which were made for by Big Finish, this season 26, just like the unfilmed season 23.
Well,
her ending was that she was being trained up by the Doctor through her ventures with Fenric, etc., to become a Time Lady.
Yes, that's what I heard, and that's what they were planning to do with the Ace character. She was gonna be one of the Time Lords and everything.
Yeah, a departure which actually has some purpose to it. The Doctor's planned it sort of from the beginning. There is that origin of Clara being impossible. She's been everywhere. She exists all in lots of different points in time. So I'd be very surprised if that wasn't a major part of the reason she gets written out.
Well, even she does leave, or there's a tragic thing to it. It doesn't mean that's the. I don't think it would technically mean that's the end of Clara, because there's a whole bunch of Claras within the universe now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Bloody good point. So, in theory, the Doctor, if he wanted to, could drop off the Clara we've got right now, find another Clara in the time and space somewhere, like the one in Victorian. Oh, she's dead, isn't she? Yeah, basically.
Although it wouldn't be the Clara that we know now. It would be like a different version of Clara with a whole different life and new memories. So she wouldn't really know the Doctor.
Yeah, but he could, if he wanted to, start travelling with her, presumably. But it would be a completely new set of adventures. So in theory, that could be a way if they wanted to rewrite her into the series, even if it was for, a sort of Martha Jones brief appearance type thing, or just like Rose did every now and then. Anyway, that is all we have time for on Doctor Who Radio Show. I have been That's the Way It Goes, better known as Dave, and this young gentleman has been
Brian.
Thank you very much, so much for joining us, Brian.
Quite welcome.
And until next time, everyone, keep pondering on that 2-part story. But until then, keep moving.